Okay, welcome to Inside the Song. This is where I go through some of the elements in the song that I think is kind of interesting, whether it be an actual instruments or some sound design elements, some samples to give it a little bit of texture and things like that. So it's basically a Logic session breakdown because I'm using Logic. And I think by the time that you guys watch this video, the song is probably already released. And I hope that you guys are enjoying the song as much as I did making it. So this is a intro. And then the song starts here. So what's going on here? There are basically four tracks. I have this little key. So this started on an Omnisphere preset called Wet Keys, I believe that's what it was called. And I sort of tweaked it to fit the song a little bit better in terms of like the tone and stuff like that. I'm not going to go through the processing and whatnot. The mix isn't the same mix. I'm missing a couple of hardware that I didn't print when I was mixing. And I was actually using a couple of plugins that I was doing, like I was having a trial on, and I didn't print it, as an audio track. So I'm missing a couple of plugins and whatnot. So it's not exactly the same, but bear in mind when you're listening to it. Anyhow, so it's just getting rid of like some of the lows and highs and stuff like that to make the bandwidth a little bit smaller. But processing is not what's important here. So that's the sound. And then I automated the reverb to kind of come in more and more. So this is where the child sort of not like falls asleep, but sort of the imagination, the projection of the imagination sort of takes over. So he sort of loses the grasp of the reality or something. It just goes deeper and deeper into the imagination. That's what I envisioned when I was making this particular section. Some more reverb. And at the end, it's like completely drenched out, you can see. So basically, it was as the section was moving, I was automating the reverb send, and I believe it was the decay time as well. I sort of made it longer as the part went on. And then I have an ambient sample. It's basically just a recording of outside, like some cars going by, some people chatting, sample of just ambient noise of a street, outdoor, that sort of thing. Because the kid is looking out the window, and now it's supposed to be just the real world, and then that's turning into the projection of his daydream. And that's what I wanted to portray here as well. Just noise. You can hear cars. And then I have a glitter track to give it a more dreamy mood. So just the sound design without the glitter. Adds a little bit more like chime and more, I don't know, dreaminess. And then I have a clock. So this is basically just a clock sample, just a regular room, table clock or the regular wall clock or something like that. But I time stretch this so that it ticks to the 113 BPM to the tempo. I used to flex time to pull all the ticks to the grid. and there's also reverb that gets more intense as the section goes on. So that's what happens in the intro. And the clock reappears later, so if you can remember that, it reappears here, so it's fun. And there's this section, the first sort of main theme section. So this is when all the bands come together, and it just kind of explodes. I wanted a big beginning. Other than the intro, I wanted to sort of really go in quickly to the song, and then it sort of chills down here. Oh, come on. So, talk about later. But okay, so what's going on here? I have this sound. That I have micro pitch or micro shift on. So without it, it's just that. And then I made it a little wider. You can see the settings here. There's very little mix. Just pushes the image a little bit more towards the end, like towards the side. Which was important for this because there's a center guitar and there's some center elements here as well. So I wanted all these stuff to kind of get out of the way. What's important here is that melody, I have the automation so that you can kind of hear the notes, kind of hear like the movement to the melody from this patch. Without let's just hear that thing. I wanted to hear that without automation. It's kind of tough to hear. It's there, but it's not as effective as something like this. It still feels like it's far away. You perceive it as if it's coming from far away, but it just makes it a little bit more visible, in my opinion. And so that's adding the weight, and it's giving the atmosphere of that. It's like kind of giant. I don't know. It's the bigness. And then we have this guy. It's a Arpeggiated Hat. Just something, the patterns programmed and whatnot. I forgot which synth I used. I think I used the Anna 2 for this. And then I have a spaceship, which is probably one of my favorite on this track. Very trance-sounding synthesizer. I think this one is from Omnisphere 2. Anyhow, so I'm doing some of the low cutting, some notches here and there to just kind of play nicely with. There's some weird mid-side stuff going on. It's just trying to make it work with all the guitar layers and other layers on here. Puzzle pieces, whatnot. In mixing, I feel like some overlaps are okay. Like it's cool to have things overlap. It's natural. But on this one, I kind of did some intense Tetris moves. Anyhow, so that's that. And then let's check out the drums on this section as well. I have. So during the snare part, only in this main theme riff section, I have a particular sample that I got from Clayton Seldweller. It's one of his samples. If I can actually solo that. Very like electronics drums. Cell Dweller's he makes sort of like futuristic industrial rock slash metal thing, and his production is out of this world. I like his stuff a lot. But anyways, this is another snare sample, and this one is Dimitri's the actual snare, which is great. Right. So that's that. We have a fake room. So I got a mono room track, and I dirtied it up a lot. So I printed a parallel mono drum track through TK compressor here, BC1S. I just summed it to mono, printed it to mono. So it's like there's a very dirty room here for energy, and then I have sort of more clean stereo fake room that I made with this plugin, the Verve Suite Classic, and it sounds natural. You know, so that's that. What else is going on? Oh, this crush. This crush. I mean, a lot of people do it. You know, it's just parallel compression from kick and snare. But I printed it with the same TK compressor, and it's not going through it in real time. I already recorded a separate parallel kick snare mono, and I blended it in. Okay, so that's pretty much all the interesting stuff. Like, I mean, rhythm guitar is pretty fun here. And then bass is fairly simple, and it just kind of does a little bit of fills here and there, and it backs off and does the simple thing. Anyhow, so I have a slap that's, this is another one that I wanted to point out. The slap, I record my slap sound always separately. And this particular song, the slaps are like pitch shifted, and there's some modulation going on. I used micro pitch to make it wider. And the slaps are always clean. And then I have an amp track that's just finger plucking. And I have dirty amp sort of distortion sound that I blended in from Parallax. So that's, some of the productions that I did on the bass. Moving on to the chorus. I call it chorus, but it's really like a section B or something. Play. So it's just band, the guitar, the rock band arrangement, just guitar, bass, and drums. And then I have this sound coming up as on the second half of the chorus. More higher register, and then in the middle size to give it a more lift, throughout the section. And then here we have a break. You can hear the clock here again. Same thing. Drenched with reverb. And then I have ambience again. So this section kind of kids going back to the reality, kind of trying to snap back to reality, and then he's daydreaming again. So, what else is happening? Oh, and the guitar, lead guitar. There's the ending line that I recorded separately and processed separately. Just wet, one note. Just goes on and on. I tried automating, but I couldn't get a really natural transition between the two. So I just stopped playing over here. And then this is a new track. Only that one. So that's separate, so I can do like separate volume balancing and stuff like that. Anyhow, now it's going back to the same rhythm, the riff section that we heard in the beginning. Oh, and then before we do that, let's talk about the rhythm guitars for the last piece. Oh, come on. So the filters, the EQ, it was just a channel EQ from Logic, and then I automated the cutaway points. I think it was just a low pass, and then I increased the cutaway up until, it's out of the way, out of the hearing range. So that's a separate stereo guitar track that I printed because it was a part of the track. I didn't want to do it in the mixing stage. That's just production. And then the last one, I wanted to emphasize those as well. So I recorded a separate guitars to double that on the side. So with quite a bit of modulation and pitch, kind of seasick pitch modulation. So it's very unstable during that moment. Same thing. This pad coming up and downs, I really like it. Again, this is the volume automation just on those particular melody notes. And it breathes again. Same thing. And on the second half or the second chorus, whatever you want to call it, I call it section B, but the chorus is fine. The second chorus is more not natural instrument, but like more organic instruments. The piano's introduced, and then we have some other keys here as well. So we have a transition which we'll hear right now. So we have this little guy, and then this is so this is a pitch, this is a catch. So together, and then we have piano track. So I have a clavinet with Crybaby and wah-wah pedal, and then I have so that's just to emphasize the hits, and then with it pops a little bit more, I feel like. So that's helping that over there. And then right after, we have this call and response here. So we have these choir hits, and I also have a Hammond, sound like that. So this guy right here. So the reason why these are all center panned is because I panned it left or right during the production stage, and I printed it as a stereo track. So when I'm mixing, they're just wherever it was during recording. I have that guy, or girls. That's more guy. So together we have like here and here, and then Hammond hit. Bop. And then the guitar is doing right after. We have a bell-like sound. And then with just this one sound, it wasn't cutting as much. You can hear it, but it's very wimpy compared to everything else that's going on. So I added this sound to add the body to it. So it's less of adding this particular sound, but it's more like make this bell heard a little bit better. So it kind of like becomes one sound. To me, it sounds like the bell. It's the same sound, but it's just pushed. It just has more body. It doesn't sound like two sound that's combined, which was the whole point. We have these guys. Just on the last, because the whole mood is changing. The entire atmosphere is changing to this this thing. Because of this. And there's a tempo change here. It goes down to 105. And this pattern's kind of like arpeggiator type of pad. Gets everybody ready for a different tempo. And then we have this sound. That one. This low. Same sound, but I recorded the low portion separately. And I played this really quietly. Just little talks. In the track. It's very, very delicate. I thought it added something cool to the whole thing. So I played very, very quietly. And then here we have marching snare. And then we have this sound. Kind of like synthesized string sound. And also a very warm analog synth sound. And during this section, I have the drums go to this room reverb that's pretty big. So it makes the snares kind of get perceived that it's coming from really far back. It's not right there. It's like you're hearing it from another room or something. Together. It just sounds distant, and I like that. That's the whole point. Before it builds into this massive section. And then we have that section, which we'll talk about. Now, with that, there's a lot going on. Okay, so the first thing that you see here is this big impact, the initial hit that's sort of introducing the new section. And I use a timpani here as a small timpani. Yeah. And the bass drop. I love bass drops for extra drama. And then flamboyant. This is the same sound that I used in Harbor City. And then trombones introduced here. This synth brass. So this flamboyant, this sound is helping the kick. So let's hear that without any of these. Okay. We're gonna have the impact. And then just does that a little bit more. And then we have other melodic elements. So it's a climb up right here. So the bass is actually helping that motion here, as far as like the parts. And then, rhythm guitars are doing. Right. In sections like that, whenever I have harmony lead guitars, I automate the volume on the harmony when I'm recording, so that these are already printed. So like you can see that this section here is a lot louder than the others, because I wanted to emphasize that particular run. So I think it's very important, especially arrangement that is kind of dense. It's important to know when to bring certain things up and when to sort of get out of the way of everything else. So that's what's happening in there. Okay. So that build probably is the climax of the entire song. In order to sort of make this next section big, I wanted to take something away so that this appears a lot larger, you know? So I wanted to take that approach. It's easy to overwhelm the listeners by adding more, but also I think you can achieve the effect by making small things smaller. And I was already kind of big, you know, going into this bridge section. So I took the trumpets away and then introduced back, you know, after this. No trumpets. So that's kind of back out and then bring more in. And for trombones and French horns, they're doing a crescendo or a crescendo here. Same thing, right? And then in order to make this entire or this one particular initial impact or initial hit sound, like right there, right here. Layered a bunch of stuff to make that happen. So let's just check out what's happening here. So I have a timpani that's kind of long. Definitely distorted. When I was producing, I definitely put some saturation on there to kind of make it dirtier. I have a quite bright crash, and this one's a little darker. So both are orchestral crash. I have bass drop. I have 2 different bass drop that's serving different purposes. So that's my impact, my attack bass drop, and then this one is the size. It's labeled as deep. So together, it does that. So if I lose the deep, it's not as overwhelming. This, you get like this big size and uncontrollable explosion. And I have strings Bartok. Really fun sound. It essentially makes the track, or it makes the section propel a little bit more. It helps the kick drum without the Bartok. Right there is another special moment. I play this line, the lead guitar, and I wanted to have a little bit more emotional impact. So a delay throw is a good way to bring that. So I have the stereo delay that's automating over here, as you can see, and because I will be hearing the delay repeats really obviously, I didn't want it to be quite papery, so I added Valhalla finish verb, it's a hollow reverb, to make the delay repeats a little bit soggier, you know, basically like this. After that, it's gone. And on the delay itself, I'm cutting the highs quite a bit. I like to cut a lot of highs on delays. I just don't like hearing really clicky sound from the delay. So that's what's going on there. And to even bring that to the next level, I'm adding a couple of effects here. That sort of sound. What the hell is this? Oh, this is just the same sound, but this is printed with the panning. I put it a little bit towards to the right, because the delay repeats a little bit more visible or audible from the right. So I wanted to bring that out a little bit more with that. So. It's quite subtle, so without it, you can still hear the delay repeats, and it's still cool, but this just adds a little bit more of movement. Also there, I'm bringing up the Bartok, string Bartok, so that I get even more energy. So it's even more banging, because there's a lot more things happening, and you know, with the French horn doing the thing. I wanted to match the energy of everything else with the string Bartok as well, so that the rhythm's kind of consistent, so that it doesn't get lost. Same thing during the bass drop as well. So if I didn't read the automation, you wouldn't recognize the string Bartok until the bass drops kind of all decay. The decay of the bass drops all gone. But if I read that, you can hear it immediately, and I wanted to get that impact of the strings Bartok. And then at the end, obviously, it's that the surprise attack. Whoa, you know, I wanted to get that, so obviously I brought the Bartok up, and I have another layer of hit. Even more that way. I have really fun delay tricks going on here as well. So this one here is pre-recorded. So how I made this particular track is I played a different line on a guitar, and I just printed the delay, and I automated the time on the delay, and I printed that sound, and I overlaid on top of everything else. So you get this kind of time traveling kind of sound. And then coming out of that as well, I have that too. That's also made with Echo Boy, me doing time adjusting and automating that. So those two together. And then it comes back, you know. So everything in context. Have the main theme here. It's the same theme that we talked about in earlier stages. So same 4 instruments. The bass is a different bass. You know, starting with the bridge, the bass is P bass, and before that it's my 6-string jazz bass. So I just wanted to mention that I used 2 different basses in this particular song. The psycho track for that brings a little bit more of a more nastiness. It's more of that dissonance kind of feel. So without that, which is cool, but even more of like squeezing. I don't know. You're trying to navigate through this, and that's what it feels like to me. And at the end, I wanted to just hear this one. The decay of that. So I cut everything abruptly over there. As well as the delay repeats from the lead guitar as well. So the only thing that you hear that's a residue is this pad. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for tuning into my song breakdown or Logic session breakdown of my new single Daydream, and I hope you get a chance to listen to it if you haven't. Until next time, my name is Victor Lee.